Hello. Hey, hey, Jack. Can you hear me?
Oh, yeah, yeah, I can hear you. Yeah, all good.
Uh, Perfect. Let me just turn up my volume. Hey, at last. I don't know. Were you waiting in the Google Meet, or was this something with this studio? It's a new software I've experimented with lately, so
No, I was waiting in
still
the
trying.
studio. Yeah,
Yeah. No, excellent. How are you today?
yeah, good. Yeah, good. It's been a really busy morning, to be honest. But no, good. There's lots going on in our world, which is good. Lots of new events
Mhm.
launching, and lots of clients booking in their campaigns with us. So yeah, it's a really busy time for us. But no, it's been a good day. How about yourself?
Yeah, yeah. No, things are going forward. I was hoping for a little better weather today, but given I'm relatively pale skinned, I have no problem with gray weather. I did get a bit red in the weekend, so yeah, had to put some extra moisturizer on this morning. But otherwise, good. Things are busy as well, and yeah, we trying to sort of coordinate this research report. So thank you so much for wanting to contribute to it. And obviously, I had a look at some of the things you've been up to at Mash Media. Obviously, you're up to some really cool things, portfolio director at some of the things that you've been up to. Also, I spoke with Gina as well, which is marketing manager for the exhibition events. So got some really cool insights from her as well. But I thought I'd love to sort of catch up with you just to understand, some of the experience and hopefully it'll be of value to our community and some other event organizers facing some of the similar challenges. So yeah,
Yeah,
thank you so much. So if you don't mind, I'd love to sort of pick your brains. So I might
yeah,
sort of dive deep and obviously I shared the questions with you. We're probably not gonna have time to go through all of them. So I'm just gonna we're just gonna go go as the conversation flows.
yeah.
But but I was thinking like just sort of first, and if you could just introduce yourself, tell me a bit more about who Jag is, what he's been up to so far, where he is currently, and where he's headed.
Sure. So, I've been at Mash Media for about 8 years now. I think it is. So quite some time. I actually started at the business in the accounts team. Finished my masters in business and thought I wanted to be an accountant, and then realised that I didn't quite quickly after doing it for 8 months. Wasn't quite cut out for it. Didn't enjoy it. So they offered me the opportunity to move into the commercial team. So I moved over to International Confex, which is our largest exhibition that we run, and it's the largest for the industry, for the events industry. Um, and I was just a sales executive on that. And after about a year's time, I become the sales manager after doing quite well, and have just sort of worked my way up through the company since then. So I took over as the portfolio director of conference news. That was about 4 years ago now. So running that portfolio, all of the events within the conference news side of our business, launched a few events on that side as well, which have all gone really successfully. And then the event director of Confex left the business, and so they offered me that role as part of my existing role. So I'm now portfolio director of the conference portfolio in its entirety, and the event director of International Confex, which is our flagship trade show for the industry. So that's a little bit about me and my role. All of the teams reporting to me. I do some other things here. I'm also the sort of head of sales department. So I also look after all of the sales teams to give them coaching and training and development. And then I also am on the Mash Media management team here. So helping make the sort of company decisions with the rest of the senior leadership team as well. So busy guy, to say the
Yeah,
least.
it sounds like it, and it's also quite the journey. Going from having done sales in the ground to now sort of being the one who oversees it. I think you must have quite a lot of perspective in terms of what it takes to succeed, starting out in an events role, and then all the way up to managerial role. Um, I was also curious if you could elaborate a bit more about sort of the international context and conference news. What exactly is it about? Well, what's the audience like? Where do you bring value in those two?
Yeah, sure. So conference news is almost the direct opposite of exhibition news, but they're also very closely related as well. So conference news is focused on the corporate event world, whereas exhibition news is all about the large exhibition side of the industry. So our core audience is made up of 4 parts, really. So corporate event planners in-house. So that could be the internal events team from Facebook to Google to the large investment banks, anyone who's a part of a brand and runs their events team and works for the brand itself. We call them a corporate, and they're the key part of the conferences community. We then have agencies who work on behalf of those corporates. So anyone from Smile to Identity to EMC3, all of the sort of big agencies that are working globally, working with these brands. If an event's too big for the internal team to manage it, or they really want some key expertise to take it over and deliver it, and outsource it to an agency. So the agencies are sort of the second part of our community. We then have associations as well. So that could be anything from the British Dental Association to pretty much anything. If you name it, there's an association for it. And obviously they'll run global conferences, bringing all of their members together and take those all around, not just the UK, but the world, to bring together learning and expertise and knowledge sharing with all their members. So their events are obviously on quite a large scale, and they make up a really key part of our community too. And then the sort of last part is the association. No, sorry, not association. The charity market. So people from Macmillan, cancer charities, any kind of healthcare charities looking after local communities. They'll all have an events team as well that will put together their events across the country. So they're the sort of final part of the puzzle that makes up the conference news audience. And the point of the publication, in an essence, is to help all of those people run their events better. So everything we do is sharing the latest trends and top tips, shared experience from case studies from other events, from other event planners. And we also run events to bring together that community, help them find new venues to run their events at, meet new suppliers to help them put together the events, and to meet each other and learn from each other on how best practice around running their events, all different kind of themes: sustainability, accessibility, technology, anything like that. So we're sort of the focal point as the information hub in the middle, trying to help event organizers run their events better, and we create a community for them to share those experiences. The main difference with Confex is essentially conference news and exhibition news put together and brought into real life. So Confex is where the entire industry meets. So it's the conference side and the corporate event side and the exhibition side, all in one room for 2 days, to meet with each other, do business, learn from some of the really good content that we put on, and essentially bring the industry together for 2 days. So that's the sort of core value of all of the brands I look after.
Okay. So in some regards, you can call US sort of inception just for events, basically, right? And events for events on occasion.
Yeah, and that's why I describe it quite often when I'm talking to people, especially people that don't work in the industry and have no idea. And I'd always say it's like inception, because we run events for people that run events. So yeah.
And that's also why I want to reach out, because obviously, you having worked on that for a while now, you must also be in touch with a lot of event organizers, a lot of those who are looking to exhibit. And I was just really curious to sort of hear your take on sort of some of the industry challenges and the future outlook, some trends that you have observed while being in touch with these people. And so I just want, as sort of the portfolio director, what would you say are some of the most significant challenges that you see in the events industry so far? What are they struggling with at the moment?
It's an interesting one. So obviously in the post-COVID world, there was a massive shift back to live events from virtual events. The virtual events had a really strong place in filling a gap over that period where people still needed to engage with their communities and bring together whether it was an internal event or external, they needed a way to engage. And so online events became that perfect solution, but it would never quite to the same extent match the in-person touch of events. Has its strengths, and there's certain things that it will still definitely have its place for. And this is the sort of feedback I'm getting from the industry. So um, webinars and sort of touch points around major events in the build up to events to bring together people. It will definitely have its place. And obviously, taking into account things like sustainability, if you can bring together your teams virtually rather than fly them all around the world, obviously it's going to be more beneficial in that regard. So virtual events will definitely have its place, but the shift back to live happened very quickly, and it saw we saw this sort of boost in innovation on the tech side, which we'd seen over the last couple of years with virtual events. Because, I mean, virtual events, they obviously have existed for years in terms of online meetings and online events, but the shift in development over that COVID period was crazy. I mean, the amount of events companies in the tech space that launched, sadly, not all of them are still existing, but the ones that are doing really well. A lot of them are now adapting their models back to live events, so building platforms for in-person events like apps, building online software for registration, things like that. But it was a proper breeding ground for innovation in a way. And I think in-person events have become the spectacular all of a sudden. Every corporate event that you're seeing now is sort of upped its level almost. It seems like the production element has become massive. You're seeing a lot of organizers change their formats of events and make them almost festivalized. So festivalization seems to be becoming a thing. Brands don't just want to bring their people together for a party. They want to do a whole festival for their whole teams. I haven't necessarily seen the international travel from the people that I speak to come back in the same sort of full force that it was before COVID, but I don't know if that's also to also do with the sustainability factor and whether people just don't think it's necessary to send people all around the world for trips and things like that. There's still definitely happening in the incentive market is definitely bouncing back. We're seeing that in the incentive trade shows that are going on at the moment. They're doing really well and they seem to be bigger than ever. So the incentive market is definitely back, but I think events formats are changing massively. We're seeing it quite a lot with our audiences. A lot of people that used to, they would just read conference news. They saw themselves as an organizer within that community, and exhibition news the same. And we have another brand, Access All Areas, which looks at the outdoor market and the festival market. But what we're seeing now with our audiences is they're all sort of engaging with all of our brands. There's so much crossover now that if you're a corporate event planner, well, if you run brand activations and you're sort of festivalizing some of your internal events, then Access All Areas will be of interest to you, so you can learn from there. And then you might do a mini exhibition as part of one of your events as well. We'll bring some clients in for an exhibition type event, and so exhibition news is relevant. And so you're seeing this sort of fluidity across what an event organizer is now. There's so much more blurred lines in a way of what people are. So that's a trend we're definitely seeing. In a way, how would you describe it? It's almost like adaptability of event organizers. They seem to be not set in any sort of way in how they run events anymore. Everything's really fluid. That's a big trend I'm seeing. Obviously, sustainability was a massive factor, as still is, but it was a really big push over the last couple of years. And I think mainly because there was a certain, what's the word I'm looking for? Lack of education in the industry. Not people didn't really know. They all knew it was the right thing to do, but they, as in to look at these factors when running an event, but no one really knew how. And that's got a lot better, I think. There's a lot of companies now that can help you track your output, and there's a lot of event agencies that are really clued up in it and are starting to include it as a standard for any of their proposals that they do for corporate planners. And a lot of corporate planners as well are having it as a non-negotiable when they're selecting agencies to work for them and giving out briefs. So that's becoming just part of everyday life, which is great, because I don't think it was sort of 4 or 5 years ago. So that's a really good thing. And the next sort of step is accessibility, I think. So it's a huge buzzword at the moment. Everyone is starting to look at it. But again, I think it's at that stage that sustainability was about 2-3 years ago, where people are still learning. People aren't quite sure how best to ensure that their events are catering for everyone, because I think the important thing is that you can't cater for everyone. It's about catering for as many people as you can while still delivering your event and delivering an event that caters for your specific audience rather than just trying to tackle every single box of anyone that could possibly come to your event. So people are on that journey now, people are learning, but they're still not as clued up as they were maybe as the sustainability side was a few years ago. So those are the main sort of trends that I'm seeing at the moment. I hope that wasn't too long of an answer, or if that ticks all the boxes.
No, absolutely. That was very valuable. And I was just sort of thinking, how well are event organizers actually adapting to these changes? And, what are you trying to do to educate the event organizer to do more of the trends that you're seeing?
I think from all the experiences I've had attending events myself and running events in the last year, everyone's so open to change. I don't think there's anyone that is denying that these are important things. So I think it's just fitting them in on the journey of how educated they are. And obviously things like budget are always going to be a factor with everything. So it's finding the most cost-effective way that fits their budget to deliver on all these things. So obviously we put on events, but which are the platform for people to learn these things. So like our Sustainability Summit is coming up in July, and that's where people will learn about best practice for sustainability. Confex has a sustainability stage and an accessibility stage for content throughout the whole 2 days. But I think what the key thing is that on how they're learning is they're not learning through us, really. We're just putting the platform on for them to learn from others, because by no means do we think we're the experts in any of these fields. What we are is the conduit to bring the experts to the mass. So all of our events, we try and get really, really top speakers, people that are very experienced in these areas, and consultants that are specialists in these areas as well. So I think from what I've seen, everyone is willing to learn on the event planner side. It's just how much they already have in knowledge and how much time they have to attend events. But our events are there to service that need, and essentially it's not us coming at them telling them that we know everything. It's providing a platform to bring sort of experts in to share that knowledge.
Absolutely. And the back in terms of some time and resources, where you see event organizers spending the most time, and also perhaps you've given an example of your day to day, but what would you say you sort of spend the most time on a day to day? Are there any pains there? Are there any sort of things that you see progressing? And then also from the event organizer side, is it perhaps an activity or something that you see they're spending a lot of time on, but you just don't think that the ROI is justified compared to the time that they spend on that?
Difficult question. So I think it ebbs and flows, right? So I think it depends on event cycles. So for us, because we run so many events as a company, we run over 20 events a year, and all for different sectors. At each point, someone in the company will be at some point in their event cycle. So at the moment, no one has an event until next month. So it's probably the only period from when our last show cycle ended, which was March, until now, where everyone is in planning mode, which is why our financial year runs at this point. It started in April. So for us, we're spending a lot of time on planning, which I guess can feel like you're not getting ROI, because in months where you're just in meetings planning, you're not running events, you're not spending, particularly for me and my team, they might not be spending as much time selling sponsorship or selling stands at events. So it can feel like this period is a bit of we're not making any progress. But I think putting the effort into this planning stage is what will deliver the rest of the year. So the more time we can spend on this, and the better we can get our plan in place, the better the ROI will be as a knock on. But it's kind of difficult to see that when you're still in the planning stage, because you're coming up with all these ideas and these ways to make the ROI, but you need to spend a bit of time not doing that for the planning stage. So that could be difficult. With event organizers, difficult one, really. I'm trying to think of a conversation I've had recently where an event organizer's talked through their pain points with me about their time they're investing. I think what a lot of organizers get frustrated with is having to spend a lot of time, let's say like venue sourcing. Is why a lot of in-house corporates will use venue finding agencies, because they don't want to have to spend weeks going to look at different venues. They don't want to have several calls and meetings with suppliers. And that's sort of why the industry events like Confex, like the Conference News Summits are really useful, because they give them the chance to meet with 10, 15 venues in one day and have all of those chats, because everyone is time poor. They'll all be on this cycle of in-between events or currently running an event. So committing to meeting with so many suppliers and trying to build relationships and things like that for an organizer is difficult, because they're so time poor. So having forums and events where they can meet lots in one day is always useful. But I think that's why our industry is so active on social media, because when you don't have a lot of time to spend going out and meeting, LinkedIn becomes your best friend, because you can catch up with everyone and see what everyone's doing. And that's why our industry is so strong on LinkedIn, I think, because that really does solve that issue.
Yeah, absolutely. Let's talk a bit about maximizing value for sponsors. Obviously, that's a major part of the revenue of an event. I remember, I used to work for 3 years at Insurtech Insights, grew that from basically zero, and I was so surprised, because I thought initially when starting out that the majority of the tickets actually contribute to the majority of the revenue, but that turned out to be rather more like 20% and 80% being it from sponsorships.
Yeah.
So I just know it's a huge importance and priority for a lot of event organizers, and I can imagine for mass media as well. Yeah. And obviously sponsors is an important part, and I just want to make sure that maybe you have some things that you can share from an event organizer perspective, what they can do to maximize the value of the sponsorship that they sell. So yeah, that's basically my next question is, what would you say can be done? So what is currently lacking in terms of helping sponsors get the most out of the event sponsorship, and what can you do to help that?
Yeah, this is really interesting. So we've just gone through this whole process ourselves. I've changed it completely with my team. We talked about it at a management level, across the board, and this isn't just us. I think it's a bit of our whole industry is guilty of this. Sponsorship has sort of become just a branding on the signage, and afterwards you get the data, and that seems to be it. There's no sort of deeper level to it at all. Whereas sponsoring is you're part of the event. You're supporting the event by being a sponsor, and the engagement should sit so much deeper than that. So I think what's really important is to look beyond the event, and that's where you can maximize the sponsor and their partnership, because then you can actually charge more money for sponsorship, because you're getting so much more value out of it, but it makes it more worthwhile, and it makes the sponsorship as sort of high regard in terms of the respect that it gives to the suppliers or to anyone who's sponsoring your event. So for us, what we've changed in the model, rather than it just being, so let's say for Confex, for example, rather than just being, let's say you sponsored a content theatre at the show on sustainability, because that's something that you're really strong on, rather than just being, you go to the show, your branding's there, you get to speak on the stage, and then you get the data afterwards. We're starting the journey before, during, and after. So before the event now, the sponsor package will include a podcast with myself or someone from the team to talk about why that topic is so important to you and your brand. We will get you involved in the whole content plan. You can moderate the theatre, and you can help us decide who speaks on the stage and what topics we talk about. We're going to look to run mini roundtable engagements with the sponsors and some key speakers, so that they get value from everyone involved. And then, yes, you get all the nice things at the show and the data afterwards for you to follow up with people. But after the event, we do a huge write-up with you involved about your key takeaways from the content. So you're showing your thought leadership at that top level. This is what the sponsor thought of all of the content and the top picks. We're going to do a write-up on the website and some sort of key snapshot videos. So it's about creating that sponsorship journey from start, middle, and end, rather than just being about the event. Because I think a lot of a lot of organizers have fallen into that trap of just making it about the event and not thinking about any of the before and after. So I think it's about creating that step-by-step journey through before the event to after the event, to give your sponsors true value. And then you can charge them more, because they'll understand that, because they're getting so much more value out of it. They're sort of aligning with the entire brand content strategy throughout the whole journey of the event.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. And in terms of measurement, How do you go to a sponsor and say, this is what success would look like at your conference? Is that different before the event, what you promise, and during and after? Or how do you sort of set that expectation, and what can a sponsor expect?
Yeah, so I think for us, we produce campaign reports. So it's because everything's measurable on a different level. So for all of the content that goes out before, we will have a full report on the engagement stats of that to our audience. Obviously, for the data on site, the ROI is the data that they're going through, and we have goals of what we want to get in terms of visitors in the theatre, things like that. And then after the event, if we're doing post-event emails or contacts with the audience, it can all be measured and tracked. So we can then build a whole report, and they can see the total engagement across everything, which is a good way for us to track ROI. So I think it depends on what you're offering in your packages. Data is obviously good, but other ways you can look at it is to do sort of feedback forms on the sponsors as well. We've also used in the past when we run a tech summit, which is all focusing on event technology, and people have one-to-one scheduled meetings within that. And then after the meetings, they can rank how the meeting was. We could give back the scores to the sponsors on how people rated them throughout their meetings. You could do that at Confex as well on the app. So I think using tech's your best friend when it comes to measuring ROI. You've got to set metrics with the clients beforehand, otherwise, or at least set expectation levels so that you're not disappointing them. They've got to be aware of what they're purchasing and what you're going to deliver. And then I think you need to have fail safes on, or at least like minimum yields on things. So I also do research projects with some of my partners in the industry, and they sponsor those, and we set minimum levels of survey, what am I trying to say? People to fill out the survey.
Respondents.
There we go. That's the word I was looking for. Respondents. And then we do a minimum yield on downloads, because we know what we can expect from our audience. So as long as you know your audience well, I think it's quite easy to set expectations of people and then deliver on them. I think it's quite clear that those are set at the time of booking, so that you make sure that you're both working at a level that you're happy at, and that you don't under-deliver for the client.
Yeah. And how aware are the sponsors that you have worked with in terms of, you send them the leads. Do they know what to do with those leads after, or is that also something that you have to coach them? And, what do you think the general education is in terms of the sponsor knowing what to do or getting them all out of an event?
I think it does varies a lot. And I think what you got to consider as well is that the events industry has companies that are a year old, a few months old, all the way up to companies that have been around for 20, 30 years plus, like Mash Media has. So you do get certain people that aren't as clued up as to how to follow up. I think what you've got to understand as well is there's the difference between the marketing person will book it, and the marketing person knows what they want from the campaign, but the salesperson's following up on the leads. So as much as you and the marketer are normally very clued up on what you want to deliver from the campaign, it's still up to the salesperson then to deliver and close a lot of these leads. So it's almost as important that they're on the right page internally as you are with the person who books through you. And obviously, sometimes the head of sales or the sales director will book something with us, particularly events. We see the salesperson will be more involved because they know that they're the ones that are going to have to follow up, and it's going to be up to them to deliver on the lead. So you'll normally get both the marketing and salesperson involved in that process, which really helps sync it up because they know exactly what to do after the event. But when it's more of a media style campaign, obviously it's the marketer, and it will then be delivered through as a lead to the salesperson. So there can be more of a disconnect in that. But for events, it's typically quite good. But like I said, everyone's on a different part of their company journey as well. So you'll obviously see differences in that. But what we really see best results from our show is the people that make the most out of the show itself tend to make the most out of the follow-up as well. It seems to just be a theme. So you will always get people that will sit on their stand, on their laptop, and not engaging with anyone. And then they don't get as many leads as they could, and they follow up and they don't get the most out of their leads as well. So on the opposite side, we have people that are working the show amazingly. They do lots in the build up and self-promotion. They book loads of meetings before the event. At the event, they're amazing. And then guess what? Turns out they follow up really well afterwards. And it seems to be a sort of current trend across the whole cycle. So yeah, I hope that answers that question.
Absolutely. And just sort of a final question to maximize and sponsor value. In terms of rebookings, are there any sort of tactics or small tips that your team has found to work very well in terms of an event organizer looking to say, we need to hit 50% rebookings for next year?
Yeah, so obviously we've been running shows for a long time now. So we've tried kind of all different types. A lot of exhibition organizers have certain ways that they rebook. We seem to have tried most of them. And what we've found is, because there's different ways of doing it. Some people will rebook their own clients, or some people will bring in their sort of external team to do it so that it's more of a transaction rather than a personal touch when you're rebooking someone, so that they can sort of get it over the line. But what we've found is, for the most part, it's better to, your clients. So having that relationship is so important. So, for example, me at the show, I will rebook as many of my clients as I can. Obviously, I've got so many things to do at the show. Being event director, I'm speaking at different places. I'm organizing bits and bobs and fixing problems as they pop up. So even within that, I still rebooked around 15 to 20, or like help to rebook at least 15 to 20 of my clients. So I think it's really important to show your clients that you do care, because you do. And at the end of the day, them having a really good show is so important, and to them as well as to you, because then they'll keep coming back to work with you again. So I think it's important to not lose that personal touch. Make sure that the people that booked the clients are looking after them as much as you can. Obviously, if someone's got 40 clients at a show, they're not going to be able to speak to everyone. They're going to have to give some to someone else to look after, or get someone external in. But as many people as you can do see. And even if you just drop in and say hello to them and make sure they're looked after. And also make the most of the before and after period as well. I think people, and it's something we've been guilty of before as well, is that we don't take advantage of speaking to people before the event enough, because people will know that they want to come back next year already, and will be happy to book in, and maybe even prefer to book in early so that they can get a better spot for next year and things like that. So I think it's really important to not just look at it as on the day, because some people on the day, the decision maker won't be there, or they will be too busy, hopefully, talking to clients from the floor, so they won't have time to speak to you, which would be the perfect scenario. So you want to make sure you're using before the show as effectively as you can as well, to speak to them and try and potentially get them rebooked in then if you can.
Yeah, absolutely. So I wanted to ask a bit more. We touched quickly upon it, but you mentioned obviously there's a marketing function and there's a sales function. And, looking at history, I think that was one of the main challenges we were solving internally with the SureThing incident. That was, we had a marketing department, we were running newsletters, we were growing the database, we were growing the socials, and everything was going well. We also had a delegate acquisition team, and, they were just running their ways. And we had a CRM, and there was always this constant battle in between, right? There's a question about attribution. There's a question about, the marketing not being compensated properly. And, there was also a question about, there's so much misalignment that we were really working to fix. And, we did manage to come up with a good solution. But after doing some more research, I realized it's more common problem than just internally for us. So I was just curious whether you have had any experience with, how the marketing function should work in an events company versus the sales function. How do they increase collaboration between each other?
Well, yeah, interesting. So we've actually been through a bit of a change on this in terms of our journey. So we used to have just a centralized almost marketing team. We only had a few people in marketing, and they worked on a few different parts of the company at one time. And we realized that we needed to shift. So we've massively shifted. So each show has its own dedicated marketing person. Each portfolio brand has its own dedicated marketing person, which has helped massively in two ways. Obviously, it helps with generating new inquiries for events and things like that, because there's more communication going out. But it's really helped us engage with our community. And the next step was to bring in a delegate acquisition manager. So we now have one of those as well. And we're looking to expand that team in the future potentially as well. So what it showed us is that marketing isn't just a driver for more business, it's the driver for engaging with your community, which is what events are all about. And that's what everyone runs events for, is to engage with your community more. So what we've invested in is the marketing team and the delegate acquisition team, and then what we've done to flip it. And so actually, if you look at our ratios, we used to have a massive sales team and a very small marketing team, and now it's 50-50, I'd say. Maybe, wow. Yeah, it's about 50-50. So each portfolio will have a marketing person, the delegate acquisition manager will work for them, and then a salesperson or a team of salespeople working on it, depending on the size of the show or the portfolio. So what we found really beneficial is moving the desks. So we used to have a marketing pod, a sales pod, and it was very separate, but now we all sit within our teams. So even that has helped. So my conference news and Confex team, we all sit together, my marketer for conference news and marketer for Confex, my sales director, and the rest of the sales team, we all sit in one section of the office. So we're constantly chatting all day, bouncing ideas off each other. Every single part of the process, from sending out a mailer to someone following up, is all linked and everyone's talking about it constantly. So I think that helps eliminate that sort of separation that you have between all of the teams.
Uh-huh. And certain sorts of KPIs, are they different from marketing and sales? Have you aligned those? If yes, which KPIs are you aligning marketing and sales on? And if they're separate, how would you measure the success of, say, the marketing team and the sales team?
Yeah, so we did this as a little exercise a few months ago. So we worked out what the conversion rate was of the team combined to hit our target based on sort of average sale size. If it's Confex, it would be average stand size. If it was conference news, it would be average deal size coming in. We worked out then from that how many we convert from how many sort of inquiries we generate. And then from there, we've worked out, obviously we're trying to overachieve. So we've set a threshold of how many inquiries we need to come in from our clients or from prospects in the industry that haven't worked with us before, in order to get enough business to sustain the event essentially and hit targets. So from there, the KPIs for the marketing team is then to deliver that. And obviously the KPIs for the marketing team are a lot on the the delegate side for us. So ensuring we get a certain amount of delegates to our events. So that one will be linked with the delegate acquisition manager. They're both got the same targets across the board to hit all those, but that won't be necessarily related to the sales team because their job is to do the sponsorship side. But the marketing manager has the same targets as the related targets, because they need to deliver a certain number, which we know should, in theory, deliver a certain amount of leads, which will then convert into hitting the salesperson's target. So they're not all the same targets, but they're all linked so that they all should sync up and flow through to deliver both the right amount of delegates and the right delegates that we want, and then also to help us hit targets for sponsorship and sales for the event.
Okay. And touching a bit upon the word community, you mentioned it a few times. I'm curious to hear sort of your definition. Like, what is community to you? Because I've heard this a few times, and is it LinkedIn following? Is that what's the definition, or is it like close-knit Slack community or WhatsApp community where they speak about each other? So, what is your definition of that community? And then, sort of a follow-up question to that: are there any sort of challenge that you have found work really, really well for you, both the marketing team or the sales team, and something you're looking to explore more in the future?
Yeah, so when I say community, I'm not referring to like a physical point of engagement. For me, community is everyone who's within your sphere, is your audience, essentially. So I go to Prep for coffee because I'm on their subscription. I'm part of their community. I like shopping at Zara. I'm part of their community because they contact me with the latest offers. I follow them on social media. I engage with their brand. So I'm part of their community, essentially. So for us, we engage with our community through WhatsApp, through LinkedIn, but that isn't where the community is. The community is the industry, and they might engage with our brands through all different mediums. And if they someone might just come to our events, they get our emails and then they attend our events. They don't engage on any other platform. They're still part of the community. So when we say community, we don't necessarily refer to it as a single point of communication. It's everyone within our reach, essentially, that engages with us is part of our community.
Yeah.
What's the second question?
Yeah, the second question was more in terms of what challenge has worked best for you now, and whether there are any challenges in the future that you're looking to explore more of. So it could be TikTok. I know that's been a big fuss around that, or short form B2B content. So I'm curious to hear what you guys have found work well for you.
So LinkedIn's obviously massively successful just because our industry is really, really big on there. So we've used that a lot. We have a group on Guild, which is a community app called Events 365, which we've used as well. We also use WhatsApp quite effectively. So for all of our sort of sub-communities that we create, we have like EN on the Exhibition News side. And then if Gina talked to you about this, we have the Exhibition News marketing sort of community. And we have our 30 under 30s, which is our sort of up and coming talent scheme. So all of these little sub communities we create with their consent, a WhatsApp group where people can chat on there, share ideas, ask advice, and communicate that way. So WhatsApp's actually been really effective for us, as well as Guild and LinkedIn. And I think TikTok is something we want to explore more. It's something that we've all put into our plans for next year. I think previously all of that sort of social media appeared to the more senior members of a lot of companies as it was for kids. But I think as we're moving through, we're seeing that like the younger generation are becoming decision makers, and if they engage with this type of content, then you need to get with it quickly, otherwise you're going to be left in the past. So I think what you've got to learn is that you're never going to have one type of engagement that works for everyone. We still run our print magazine. Obviously, we've reduced it down. So we used to run it every month. There was a print magazine that went out. We only run it quarterly now because there isn't as much demand, but there still is a really strong demand for the people that want it, because some people, typically we see that they're more at the more executive and board level. They prefer to have a print magazine and they want to read it. But other people just want to get our emails and they just want to subscribe to our email database, and that's it. Some people follow us on all of our socials and engage on there. And so even if you move into using TikTok, there will obviously be some people that will say it's a waste of time and it's not worth doing, but there will be people that really want to engage that way. And yes, they may particularly be a younger audience now, but in 5 years' time, they might be the directors of the company. So the more you can engage with them now, the better. And some of them already will be at that level. So yeah, I think the shorter form content is the major next step for a lot of our industry. So I'm seeing a lot of companies starting to use TikTok more effectively, which is great. So I think that's where it's heading. But I think people are still a little bit reluctant to use it because they see it as an app for kids. But I think that's going to change quite quickly. I think within the next 12 months, that will shift.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm always curious to hear sort of the take on TikTok. I know we used to work with this kind of insurtech influencer while working on InsurTech Insights called Robin Kira. Amazing guy, really knows his content. And he was the first to shout about TikTok for insurance. Everybody thought he was crazy, but, half a year later, 10 million views, like he's getting his content out there, right? Because he's willing to adapt. So it's all about speaking to that. And it was also an interesting metric that, differs TikTok from some of the other traditional channels, is that TikTok, the way it's so good is obviously the content recommendations. And the content recommendations is primarily based on not like engagement in terms of likes or views, but it's actually in terms of reshares, because reshares is the most time investment heavy thing you can do apart from comment. And the whole idea of you resharing it with your colleagues or friends means that it probably is valuable for you. So they just cracked that code of measuring on the most likelihood to engage metric, and then they just boosted out of that, which has made a scary accurate algorithm. It's always revealing to go and look at somebody's TikTok and see what pops up, right? Because that says a lot about the person, what they engage with. So if that's what it takes, it's cool to hear that you guys are willing to experiment with that. And also add one more question in terms of that. If TikTok is so good at customizing and really tailoring content to their audience, are there some initiatives that you have tried taken to sort of tailor messaging more to find the more relevant delegates or sponsors, maybe even with AI. For example, I read about this tool that could sort of take an agenda and then tailor a message per the delegate based on what they would find most interesting. Have you guys tried customization, personalization like that?
Yeah, definitely. So we'll send out different messaging for each sort of subcategory we have within our database. So using HubSpot, we use a lot of ChatGPT. We have a few accounts, and we have one for each brand. We basically built custom GPTs for each of our brands, which we're feeding just all of the information that we can get into it, so that you can basically, people can use it as a what's the word? Like a customer help desk almost. So anyone who's joined the company that's new, they can ask it any question. It will tell them everything about the brand. So we're using that to also, we then write all of our emailers through it. So it uses like my tone. They put a lot of my things that I've written before into it, so that it will write things in my tone, which works really well. And then from there, we do, so let's say we're trying to contact corporate agency associations. We'll write different messaging for each one, because we know that their events are completely different, and the way they engage is different, and what they look for is different. So for something like Confex, we wouldn't send them all the same highlights of the content. If we're trying to get them to register, we'll send them each different highlights within the content that we want them to engage with and will interest them in order to sign up. So yeah, so we've done bits and bobs. We haven't done it as much on social media, but we have definitely in our email marketing customizing. Yeah,
that's very cool. The time has arrived where you don't know if it's a person texting you or emailing you, or if it's a bot, right? It's been that for a few years, but now it's so good that it's almost indistinguishable, right? You even have, the voice, like the sales delegate that can sell you with an AI. It's crazy how it's going.
Yeah.
So yeah, that was basically my final question. Maybe is there anything that, if you could go back to use yourself starting out in the event space, is there one piece of advice that you would give yourself right now? Looking back.
Yeah, I mentor a few people sort of up and coming in the industry as well. So, and I sort of tell all of them this is learn as much as you can about the industry, because I think my knowledge right now is really good about the industry, or relatively good at least. And it's just been spent getting to know my audience as much as I can, meeting with them, spend more time on things that you, if you're in sales, spend way more time speaking to your community than you're currently speaking to clients and prospects, because the more you learn about them, the easier it will be to sell to anyone, because you know exactly what they want. Whereas I didn't do that at the start when I was in sales. I was focusing on selling and selling and selling. Whereas if I'd have spent half as much time as I do now speaking to my audience, finding out what makes them tick, finding the latest trends, finding out what they really want, then selling just becomes sort of second nature in that regard. So I think that applies not just to sales, it applies to anyone. If you're a marketer, if you get to know your community so well, then sending emailers becomes second nature, because you know exactly what they want to hear and why they would want to come to your event. So I think get to know the people that come to your event way more than you are currently doing. And that would seem to solve most problems that you have.
Excellent.
Great.
Thank you so much for that, Jack. So yeah, I've all the questions. Thank you so much for your time. You provide some great insights, so some really good answers.